All right, guys, I have my computer screen over here. So if I'm looking away, just know that I'm looking at the pointers of my talk. I had to prepare a little bit. But again, it is supposed to be a Dhamma talk, but it is actually more of my process that I want the Sangha to be a part of because um, Sangha has been a huge helping hand in my growth and transformation. And knowing that on my most difficult days, I can just go for the session and I knew everyone was there with their hearts open there for me, whether being said or just being felt energetically was huge for me. And I just want to offer this as a gift to Sangha as a form of my gratitude for that open heart. So thank you everyone for that. I really do deeply appreciate you guys, and it's almost overwhelming for me to share gratitude in terms of words because it's such a feeling that is so strong for me. So I'm going to do my best to do justice to the intensity of gratitude I feel for each and every one of you. Um, I want to start with just giving some context to this talk. In 2025, I made a decision to step out of my comfort zone and to challenge myself and to partake in the creation of a life that I wanted. And the biggest thing for me was to create or be a part of a community and to have friends and my support system. Um, in my journey, I have made some really close friends and I have fostered relationships that has been a catalyst for my change and transformation. And I want to offer this talk to everyone that I have come across this year and years beyond that I to this day feel grateful for. Some of these relationships has definitely tested me in ways that they have touched the most innate part of me. And through that, I have realized that, after years of practice and years of healing and going through therapy, um, the CPTSD and the PTSD is still very much alive within me. Uh, I still feel like moments that I was tested, I have felt absorbed in my fears and anxieties, and it has made me feel completely broken and questioning my years of practice. A lot of you know that I started very early on in my life, and when I was 18, and starting that early now I realized has its own challenges and has its own like struggles because I missed out on the part that most teenagers learn on how to cope with things, those basic skills. But instead, I started to associate meditation as a way to find my way out of the situation. Um, and definitely, it had helped me to great extent. But this time, I I was basically unable to have the full bird's eye view on the complexity of my mind and what it was going through, the discomfort. So, most of my life, I had learned to, when faced with a difficulty or a situation, my first instinct is to resolve it and dive into it and figure out a way to navigate through it. And most of the times I did that without any fail safe. And this time I definitely did fail in that. So um, this was one of the most learning opportunity for me when I did fail. And when you work or you've put so much energy and effort into honing a skill and you do fail, you start losing conviction in yourself. You stop trusting yourself. You start losing faith in your capabilities on to deal with things. Most of my life, I had worked on skills like, emotional independence, resilience, stability, clarity, and also learning um, how to have that strength in yourself. And over time, being alone, you become that, and you also create this exoskeleton that prevents you from being open to the world and the people around you. Um, this time, all of these skills that I had honed, including my practice, were completely obsolete. And the trigger moment for me was when I made a sacred commitment to be fiercely loving and to be able to manifest that. I was required to shed my exoskeleton, which was very excruciating, very painful. I felt depressed. I felt shaken inside. And I my spirit was broken and I couldn't find the light. And, you know, I kept on doing the same thing. You know, I need to meditate. Even if I fall asleep, it's okay. I need to keep at it. What I didn't realize was that um, I was following a pattern and I was like completely overridden by my survival instinct. I call it my warrior, which will make sure that it protects me, even if it might be with some pain, but the big picture is to protect me from any harm. Um, Usually, when that triggers, I go into a shell where I seclude myself. I go into isolation. I limit my outside interactions to bare minimum or keep delaying it or, you know, rescheduling meetings or conversations or anything of that sort. Um, Amidst all of this, I was fortunate enough to have a persistent friend that reached out, and he would reach out like a clockwork every weekend. Hey, I was hoping to catch up, and over time the guilt caught up to me. And I was like, oh, I can't escape this. I have to have this conversation. And I kept things very light and very surface level just to make sure that, just not burdening someone else with my pain. And going through the conversation, he came up with this interesting idea of disengaging from a problem that you don't have an immediate solution to. And that stuck with me. I was kind of, my brain couldn't let that conversation go. So the next day, I decided to put it into practice and see what happens. I started doing yoga again and I started diving into cooking, things that I enjoy doing. I started gaming again. And I made like this schedule where I would designate 30 minutes of my day and only 30 minutes for deep thinking. And if not meditation, then I would focus on mindful thought processing and journaling. And, I was going through like day 2, day 3, day 4, just following like a routine. And I realized over time that the more I allowed myself to be relaxed and my nervous system to do things that it enjoyed doing, the insights started to come in for me. And it was like I was caught off guard by that. How can simple things like cooking or just going for a walk or just, you know, spending an hour gaming could calm my nervous system to that extent? And I was very skeptical about all of this because I felt like, because of my years of practice, on the surface, it felt like I was using these things as an escape. But then I was also wondering, I'm not escaping it, but I just don't have the answers. So I'm doing a designated time where I would allow myself to dive into the problem itself and then disengaging. The biggest point that I missed out when I was in the darkest part of this process was that I did not realize that by forcing myself to find the answers through meditation and seeking it and allow and just focus so hyper focused on it that I was actually withholding love from myself, withholding the care and the compassion that I would have easily shown to a friend, but I was withholding it from myself. And it was actually hurting me. But that hurt was also necessary for me to feel like there was no light at the end of the tunnel was very important for me, because if I wasn't feeling stuck and felt like I had no way out, I wouldn't have been as receptive. I wouldn't have been as open to a random idea that an unrelated banter just dropped in my lap. And that moment made me realize that meditation has helped me to grasp onto the insights and put it into practice and also strengthen my mental fortitude. But at the same time, because I had started so young in my life, I hadn't explored other ways to relax my nervous system when I'm sitting in the depth of that discomfort of change. And for me, it was for the first time that I realized that punishing myself or withholding love for myself until I could present results was the same action, and committing the same action towards myself that put me in that place of hurt itself. And in the process of going through all of this, I realized that how much damage that withholding love from myself has done to me. It was a learned pattern, from XYZ or from childhood, that I was repeating it over and over again. For me to love fiercely, I had to first learn to break that pattern within myself. And that was one of the most difficult experiences and the difficult dynamic that I had within myself to digest. And a sacred commitment made during a Dhamma talk that Ryan gave about self-love and self-care. And something within me was like, yes, this is what I want to commit to. And the unfolding that happened was a very uncomfortable process. But in that discomfort, I realized like how slowly I was opening myself back up again to things that I enjoyed doing, to finding um, somewhat of a refuge in conversations that was about people that I loved and cared for, and enjoying them talk about things that they are passionate about, talk about things that they are interested in. And by just being present and providing them with that space where they could do that was, in a way, kind of a two-way streak, because in on the personal level, I was showing compassion to myself and my nervous system by giving it a break and letting it take a back seat, while giving that generosity of time and space to someone that I care about, or someone that I feel connected to, and allowing them to explore those parts of themselves and allowing it to flow freely without any inhibition. And being able to see that in someone filled me up with so much joy that I did not foresee it from happening. So, things that I felt like, if I don't solve this problem, means that I'm just gonna run away from it, was such an illusion. And I allowed myself to feel that way. It's almost like I was punishing myself until I produced favorable results. And I started wondering on how many different levels have I been also exhibiting that at a macro level, which in turn means like on the outside. Am I doing that to people that I love and care? Am I withholding love? And the more I became aware of this, and the more day by day my nervous system relaxed, now I was able to hold space for people with more ease, show more compassion, but at the same time, I was able to pick up subtleties of care that they were showing, but I was unaware of it because my mind was searching for something blaring like a flashlight in the dark. And that is my insight. That is the epiphany that I needed. And I was so focused on receiving that bright light that I couldn't see the flicker. So being able to show that subtle level of care to myself, subtle level of compassion towards my already overworked, overextended, overexpanded like nervous system, and just showing up for myself helped me to show up for the people that I call my community or people that I love. And that gave me a new sense of understanding for my own self care, for my own self love, and for my own nervous system, that the flip side of, strength and independence and emotional resilience and all of that, the flip side of it started to surface up: the softness, the compassion, the empathy, which is all unconditional, and the nurturing side of me. I was finally able to embrace the part of me that was covered underneath the exoskeleton and hardened by life experiences that kept on telling me I have to be strong, I have to be hard, I have to be this, I have to be emotionally independent of anyone. And it allowed me to also, in turn, embrace the love, the subtle care in actions that I missed out before, to identify nuances of like compassion that was coming towards me that I was blind before that, because my shield won't let those things in. Because what if I get too used to it? What if it's not there in the future? What if I get used to having these things that are freely given to me from people? What if I'm spoiled? And by going through this process of like understanding that receiving in itself is a form of generosity, I learned that I'm already strong, I'm already resilient, I'm already emotionally independent. So when the time comes that I have to be that, I have already learned and honed that skill. I don't need to worry about losing it. I might stumble maybe, because that would be more like riding a bicycle after 5 years of not touching one. Yeah, I might stumble, but I would immediately know how to be that again. It was almost like I had to be broken down and lose my faith and conviction in myself and learn these new skills, adapt to these new skills, put that into action, and build my conviction back into myself again. And it was one of the most uncomfortable, not at all graceful, not at all elegant process. But what I have learned through that process is seeing the beauty of the unknown, of the uncomfortable feelings, the beauty on like stepping into that where you're just like, I don't know how to be or who to be right now. But you still keep on going, having that faith in yourself that, you know, I have a rap sheet of dealing with a lot of stuff. I got this. It can't be that bad. And just doing it anyways. And I realized what you gain from going through that unknown, uncomfortable, awkward, stumbling self is that you appreciate the process, you appreciate the growth, you appreciate the transformation, you appreciate the insight that you now have gained, which you wouldn't have if you didn't go through that process of discomfort, that process of awkwardness, of learning to walk again in the new terrain. It has opened up my eyes in understanding to the core what self love and self care means at a psychological, neurological level, not just outward actions of eating well or, you know, skincare and stuff like that, which I still do struggle with skincare. It's been a battle, but that's another topic. um, but just understanding the value that I did not realize it, the value and the beauty of what a light conversation and a fluid banter about a topic that you either know very little about can bring for you. It is such a calming feeling to be just having a conversation with a friend or with a close person or a loved one that you know nothing about. But it is also opening up your mind to new ideas, new ways to grow, new skills that you're developing. And you are also keeping that neuroplasticity going. But at the same time, you're not tunnel vision with the one problem that you cannot solve. Because even though it's not an immediate, direct understanding, but it also gives you an understanding that the world is full of things that I might never understand or can fathom the concepts of it, the theory of it, or even understand it. But you will meet people along the way that will enrich you, that will be a catalyst for your growth. And for me, getting in touch with the feminine side of me that I had kept it undercover for such a long time has been the biggest gift. And I have gifted that to myself, but in turn, that was the gift that was presented to me by someone else's generosity of sharing the knowledge. And today, maybe these things are very basic, and I missed out on all of these basic lessons that I should have learned at a younger age. But I want to just keep the cycle of sharing and generosity going. This is my tidbit of knowledge that I have gained from my darkest times and going through this season that is dark and sometimes can get very depressing because the lack of sun or anything. But I would like to offer my experience as a dana to the sangha that indulge in those small talks, indulge in those conversations during this holiday season. And I hope it brings you the same peace and joy and reprieve from our day to day internal struggles that we sometimes have great days and other days we fail miserably at coping with it. And for me, going through this process, I have seen growth in my patience with people, in my understanding, in my ability to foresee where they are coming from without them having to explain it to me. My lack of depth with someone has presented me with an insight of understanding that I am so glad for you that you did not go through the dark times that a lot of us have to go through to have this depth. And I am so happy for you. And it's okay. It helps me understand that I am different and so are they. And I want to learn simple things like when they talk about, Ruchi, you just need to distract yourself. And I never understood that. But today, I feel grateful to all of those people that have said that to me before and it never clicked. But today, it did click for me. And I'm grateful to them. I'm I'm feeling very fortunate to be in this space and to be given the honor and the opportunity to share. Um, Thank you, Sangha. I feel like I can't go on any longer because it's getting awkward for me to keep talking. Love you all, and thanks for your grace in listening and allowing me to share.